So we head over to the content structure. This is really the heart of Easy Platform. So our content engine is the engine that powers everything on the site for the structure. And each and every content item here, if we take, for example, one article as an example, called Mexican cuisine, each content item is built on a content type. So in this case, we have an article, and then an article has individual fields. In this case, we have a title, short title, summary, rich text with some embedded images, and so on. So here you can see also we have a location field and some other relationship fields. So all of this is something that always runs in the background. And for each content item, we have some metadata. So we have to keep automatically details of the content item. Then we have technical details such as technical IDs in the background of the system. We also have additional metadata and also a listing of sub-items which would be in the tree. So in this case, obviously, this article doesn't have anything underneath it, so the sub-items listing is empty. Here on the versions tab, you can see some history on editing this content item. So on each and every edit of the content repository or any item in the content repository, the system creates a new draft, and a draft is then pushed to be live, and anything else earlier is then pushed into archived. You also have a limit for archived versions. By default, this is, I believe it's 10, but this is something you can configure. So if you don't wish to litter your database with a large number of versions, then you can modify this. Another key feature in our repository is a feature called locations. So one piece of content can be published in multiple different locations. So here, for example, we have this specific article in one location, but if I click on the plus sign and see this widget, which allows us to modify this interface or this serve our content repository, if I were to place it here in products, you will see that this item now has two locations. One is here, and the other one would then be in products, which in this case you can see here. So this means that you have the powerful capability of publishing the same item in multiple different locations of your site. I will now remove this added location because this is not something that we will be working with now. So now the Mexican cuisine is always, again, just placed in the places and tastes location. Here we also can see one of the key features in our content repository, which is the relationship between each individual content item. So in this article, you can see that we have a number of relationships to other items. We have quite a few relationships to images and articles. There are different types of relationships. Some are embedded, some are field relations, and you can also find reverse relationships, so items that link to this article. But here, if we look at examine quickly the relation type, the embed and field relationships can be actually seen in the preview site. So here you can see, for example, this image is a related image, and we have then some explicitly linked articles here in a related articles field. So all of the images, for example, here if I go into and see the guacamole image, this image is actually a separate object which is placed here in the media library under media images, tastes, Mexican cuisine, and guacamole, and this then has the actual image. So this allows efficient reuse of media and other items which are placed here in our content repository. If I go again into relations, I can see that this image is used in one article, and if I navigate here, clicking the Mexican cuisine, I can find this article again. So this relationships functionality is very powerful, and it always works in the background when you're creating, modifying, and editing your content. The translations tab shows that we have multilingual capabilities in our product. So all of the different languages that you want to translate an individual article to can be also modified here. So in this case, we have one for English, one for French, one for German, and one for Norwegian. And the codes are also displayed here. So you can also then, if you click the editing, you can see that you can also modify individual translations using this widget. On the left-hand side, we have the content tree, which is a small but very useful and powerful functionality for you to navigate within your content tree structure. Then on the right-hand side, you can see the create button, which allows you to select a specific type of content item that you want to create and a specific translation that you want to use. Then continuing on this, if we see the edit button, this will then click us to the edit view. We can also move this item, so this is related to the locations functionality, so we could move this to another locations. We can also take a copy of the whole object, which will then copy each and every translation of this object, and so on. We can also copy a subtree, so in this case this item does not have anything underneath it, so the subtree would just be this itself. But if we were to copy the whole text section, then each and every item underneath it would also be copied. You can also then hide items, which means that they are just simply not available through the front-end design of the site. They will still be available in the administration interface. Then we also have the trash capability, so when you do create items, they are pushed into trash by default. Here in the top menu, you can also see the media library, for example. This is something where you can create folders, organize your image and other media assets as you may want to organize them. Inside the link manager, each and every time you make a reference to a link, we keep internally in the repository, we keep track of those items, and you can find all of them here. There's also a nightly task that will review and check if that URL is still valid or not. All of this content repository and the structure that we have here, depending on the fields that you want, all of this is handled within our content types. So this is basically a stencil for your content items. You can modify whatever fields you would like, for example, a blog post to have. Inside the blog post, you can have multiple fields. We're not going to modify these now, but the model is dynamic, so you can modify it later and then place in the front end only the fields that you want to be shown.